frame. Good morning. So now, in a moment, of course, now that you're seated, I'll invite you to say hello to each other. But I was thinking of the question mark that's been hanging up on the wall there. We've had several outside events, concerts and things, and a few people have asked, is that the best thing to have up on the wall? What does it mean to be people of... Right. Fuel those stereotypes, right? And the stereotype is true. We are people of questions, always, right? Always staying open, always open. Ideally, right? That's our aspiration. So as you greet each other this morning, and once again, I'll ask you to make sure that everyone is greeted. So look around and make sure that no one's just sitting there without being greeted, unless they really don't want to be. I invite you to name one of the questions that's in your heart and mind these days. One of those things you're wondering. Maybe it's about the world, maybe it's about the nation, maybe it's about you, maybe it's about something else. If you're willing and that feels comfortable enough, just one, and you can go as deeply as you want, right? It can be a surface kind of question. What am I going to have for lunch? Or it can be much deeper than that. What's this next step in my life going to be? So with that, I invite you to say hello to the people you're with this morning. Online folks too, I invite you to type in. Thank you. Phil Horning offers our land acknowledgement this morning. Thank you, Phil.
Good morning. These acorns remind us that we meet here on Nisenan land, that the history of this land and its people continues to shape this community, that we support the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe in efforts to stabilize their people and to restore tribal sovereignty through federal recognition, and that our own deepest well-being is bound to the tribe's well-being.
Good morning. I have a reading from Rainer Maria Rilke, and this is from his letters to a young poet. So here's the letter. Be patient with all that is unresolved in your heart, and learn to love the questions as if they were locked rooms or books in a foreign tongue. Don't search for answers now, which cannot be given to you because you are not ready to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. And the point is that perhaps somewhere down the line, you may be able to live yourself into the answers. For now, live the questions.
And we send this light with our youngest ones via one of our not so youngest ones. Cheryl, come on up. With this little light of mine, singing together, singing our youngest ones on their way.
Good morning. A warm welcome to those of you here in this room, as well as those of you who are with us on Zoom. How's your curiosity this morning? I hope you're bubbling with questions, and if not, may you start wondering, and may they start percolating for you right now. Rev Kevin has offered to answer the myriad of questions which might be filling our heads, which might be filling this hall. I'm Carol Nimick, the worship associate for this service, and I'm pleased to be in this room alive with inquiry and questioning. I've always felt questions are an excellent place to begin, and could, in fact, be more important than the answer. They ignite my wonder, my curiosity, and at times awe, and often lead me to a very thoughtful place of spaciousness and reflection. This morning, a warm welcome to all of you, to those who've been in this room many times, and for those of you who are here for the very first time. And a special welcome to the questions stirring in our hearts. I hope we will be stimulated by the sharing of questions and arrive at some new understandings.
Interrogative, or having the form or the force of a question. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give. Open my heart that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give. Oh, the questions. The questions come, sometimes invited, RSVPing in a respectful and timely manner, arriving at this scheduled hour, lined up smartly like the Von Trapp family children. Who, what, when, where, why, how. Behaving themselves at the table, holding up their end of the conversation, even the young ones, departing thoughtfully before the host's face begins to betray fatigue. But more often, the questions, the real questions, have no qualms about crashing the party, shoving aside any pretense of decorum, or let alone polite niceties, oblivious to social cues, yelling out the most persistent and indelicate queries at the most inopportune times. Or maybe it's at exactly the right times, uncomfortable as they are, when there's no avoiding them, when the only escape is right through the murky, painful, and ultimately liberating middle. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give. Learn to love the questions, we are advised. And sometimes they are thrilling and welcome and readily lovable. But sometimes the questions that show up are rather difficult to love, especially in certain moments when asking them hurts, when asking them peels back a layer, when asking them means we'd have to see, admit, acknowledge, feel, stop pretending. When a question that has long frightened us keeps knocking, knowing we're in there, though we are staying out of sight and hoping it will go away, refusing to leave this time, kind but unbudging, until we risk opening the door. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give. Yes, sometimes the questions are difficult to love until enough time seasons what we know, and until enough geography informs our hearts, and we can look back behind us to recognize how necessary and transformative particular questions have been, worthy in retrospect of a kind of love and a deep, deep gratitude. Revealing of love, it turns out. Revealing of love. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love to share some of the joys and the sorrows and the in-betweens that we're carrying this morning, I would invite you to call out or type in some of what you're carrying, the hopes, the prayers, the concerns, the joys, the thrills in your heart, and invite you to frame it in the form of a question. What's the question that expresses that? I will repeat what people say in the room, and I'll be watching the chat. What's in your heart this morning? What joys and sorrows? What's on your mind? And what is the question that comes with that? How can I get all the weeding done?
How can I best support my granddaughter's openness to exploring her past?
How can I best support my granddaughter's openness to exploring her past?
How could I be patriotic?
How could I be patriotic?
What will my graduating grandchildren's futures hold?
What will my graduating grandchildren's futures hold? I finally graduated? Congratulations. Yeah. What's our fire season going to look like?
Why not me?
Why not me?
Which values should I hold closest when I visit with my family?
Which values should I hold closest when I visit with my family? From online, what is more satisfying than having your grown child come over to help with the gardening and heavy lifting? How can I fully celebrate and balance with getting my website done?
How can I be at peace at a time of great loss?
How can I be at peace at a time of great loss?
How long is it going to take me to learn Spanish?
How long is it going to take me to learn Spanish?
Now what?
Now what? These, of course, and a whole lot more, I invite us to enter this weekly ritual. If you're new, we have a ritual of placing stones in a bowl of water, equivalent in some other traditions of lighting a candle that marks and knows that something's going to hold this, something tangible is going to hold what we're holding. But also it's a symbol that this community, even brand new to you, that the people in this room and on Zoom, this community holds you, that we hold each other with all that we have. I invite you in the quiet music to center yourself, to enter your prayer, enter your focus, enter your internal search, enter your stillness, and to hold each other as people come forward who choose to, and place a stone in the bowl of water. There are folks online who type into the chat some piece of what they bring today, or an O or a 0 to be the equivalent of a stone that stays more anonymous or unknown, but marks something. May we hold each other tenderly.
Some stones to represent the rest in us and the rest of us. I invite us for our meditation to enter together the still small silence in us. If it helps you to stretch for a moment first, feel free. If it helps you to even rise and stretch your back, for those who benefit from that, feel free. Find it helpful to stretch before centering. So I invite us to enter together the still small silence in the heart of God, perhaps for you, the silence at the center of the universe, the silence in the rare and blessed quiet of our mind, the silence that can only be held by an entire group of people. I invite you to listen there, listen here, for the resonant question of this moment, maybe of this part of your life journey, maybe for your question for God or Spirit or the unknown. Let us enter a true, meaningful silence. May we know the gifts of this silence, graced as it is always with the sounds of the world. Not just know it today, but know it when we're alone and most need to remember that we are not truly alone. May it be so.
Excuse me. I'm writing these thoughts in Pennsylvania, where I'm visiting my 100-year-old father, perhaps for the last time. He feels his life is complete and reflects on his longevity and good life. He wishes to express his desire to cross the threshold and be with my mother. The questions of when and how this will happen are palatable, floating underneath each conversation. What emerges are my questions as I struggle with letting go. I've always loved questions and been drawn to live in them. Some questions are momentary. When will the sun shine? When will I plant my garden? Others have lived unanswered in my heart since childhood. What is it to really, really love? Who is my authentic self? How do I behold this one and precious life? To quote Mary Oliver, the act of living in inquiry moves me to more mindful engagement and to be more in the moment. What is happening right now? What am I observing? What are my body and heart feeling? Am I open? Am I breathing? Am I present? Am I being guided by my word for the year, softness? The ebb and flow of questioning is a form of prayer for me. Living with curiosity has also helped in difficult, entangled times by allowing me to step away from conflicting circumstances and to move into a more spacious, reflective, objective place. At these times, I ask with curiosity, what is happening? Why? What is my part of this? What is my responsibility? How best can I understand before responding? I think of Stephen Covey's principle. It's best to understand before wanting to be understood. I question, what more is there? What more should I know? Usually a pause to ask brings rich insights. Another time I appreciate questions is around bedtime. I remember when I was teaching and needing a story or a verse or a greater understanding of a child, I'd ask specifically for this before sleeping, and the words of the story or the answers I needed would be there when I awoke. I frequently visit a question as I seek a restful time, even today. Some questions are constantly with me when walking in nature, hoping my holding these questions time after time, walk after walk, might lead to a deeper understanding. I'm fascinated, for example, how an old dead tree decays in its patterns that it makes, or observing the similarity in patterns, growth patterns in a tree's seeds, leaves, and branching. Questions about the natural world guide my observations. Perhaps Mary Oliver sums up my love and gratitude for questioning when she wrote, I keep my distance always from those who think they have the answers. Let me keep company with those who say, look, and laugh in astonishment and question and bow their heads. For me, the best questions are those that drop into the well, ricocheting against the sides with descending sound, and then disappear. May those deep questions be left unanswered? Maybe. Maybe the question is the answer.
Thank you, Carol, very much. In our Unitarian Universalist tradition, we claim that revelation is not sealed, which is religious language, traditionally religious language, meaning that truth is never static. It can't ever be captured once and for all. It's always unfolding, as is our understanding. A companion commitment in our tradition guarantees freedom of the pulpit and freedom of the pew, as it does in the Baptist tradition and most North American Jewish congregations. This is the guarantee that a minister or a pastor or rabbi may always speak their truth, not controlled by a denomination or a congregation, and the guarantee that members or visitors or any listeners don't have to agree with any of the truth that the minister or pastor or rabbi speaks. Freedom of the pulpit, whoever's speaking here. Freedom of the pew, whoever is listening. In our case, this mutual freedom actually goes a long way back to the 1500s, if you can believe it. 1568, to be exact, when our only Unitarian king, King John Sigismund of Transylvania, issued the very radical Edict of Torda, which decreed religious tolerance, at least for Catholics, Lutherans, Calvinists, and Unitarians. The edict, all the way back then, put it this way: preachers everywhere are to preach the gospel according to their understanding of it. 1568, let no superintendent or anyone else act violently or abusively to a preacher. No one may threaten another on account of his teaching with imprisonment or deprivation of office. As for freedom of the pew, it claimed this: if the parish willingly receives the minister's truth, good. But if not, let there be no compulsion on it to do so. And the congregation's absolute right to choose its own minister was expressed thusly: let each parish keep a minister whose teaching is acceptable to it. Freedom of the pulpit, freedom of the pew, which also leaves space for what's said here to be challenging too. Doesn't mean we have to like it, right? So this is true every Sunday, this freedom in all these places. And we ritualize it playfully today by creating together a question box sermon. You get to submit questions for me, maybe to answer, with no guarantee that I will answer or have an answer. I may very well turn to you. And these can be questions about anything from what I like for breakfast, which was an actual question one of my colleagues received, to your history or theology or my take on something. And I'll answer as many as I can, turning to you for help as needed. And as I said in the description of the service, the questions themselves are likely to be at least as revealing as any possible answers. So you have cards if you're here in the room. You have a chat if you're on Zoom. I invite you to write your question. We'll collect them in a moment. What's your question? When your question's ready, go ahead and raise your hand. You can take your time. We'll get started with the first few here. Yeah, if anyone needs a pencil or a card, there are more available nearby here. I am so very curious. Okay, I'm in no particular order except as they're arriving. Why do I not get sick and injured while everyone around me is dropping like flies? I cannot answer that question. Healthy living, healthy DNA, perhaps. Good luck, perhaps. What do you think about faith? Is there faith without a higher power? To the second part of that question, is there faith without a higher power? I would say yes, right? I think our faith can be placed in any number of places. For me, often it's in possibility, and my faith comes actually from my lived experience, which is to say I didn't think, decide, choose so much as, right, have a faith that there is open possibility in what happens. Other people, based on your experience, may have faith in other things. For example, nature, the world as is. Are there things you have faith in?
Change, the cycles and change.
Change, right? Different from hope, different from optimism, right? Faith is that deeper felt sense. That becomes, I think, quite transcendent, right? If we could kind of think logically all the way through it, it would not be faith, right? It's that thing that has to be amorphous enough, transcendent enough. When did you switch to UU and why? Right, so I was raised Catholic, as I name often, because it shaped me so much. I left Catholicism at the end of college when the church's view on sexuality, homosexuality in particular, and the fact that women could not be priests I couldn't tolerate those anymore, right? No matter what the church wanted to say about the value of women, giving all the leadership and power to men just denied what was being said. And the church's view of kind of love the sinner, hate the sin around sexuality, and based on my own personal experience, was too much. So I left in a lot of anger, having stayed longer than I would have because I was so involved in the music, right? So much fed me, the people in the music, but not those ideas. And I think one of the turning points was I was part of the Catholic Charismatic movement, which is that Pentecostal spirit-filled piece of the movement. And one of the leaders of that did a whole kind of diatribe on sexuality, on gay persons. That was really negative, and how the goal was for God to change that in you. And that was my last straw. So a couple years later, I came out in the local newspaper after having attended a lesbian gay march in Washington, D.C. And it was just lesbian gay in those days. But the experience of being surrounded by people who affirmed me, right? Hundreds of thousands of people, was so liberating. That on the bus ride on the way back, I wrote a letter to the editor for the paper and sent it in, because you mailed things in then, before I would change my mind. So I came out in the newspaper, and then this little fellowship, about 20 years old, in Traverse City, Michigan, read that, said, hey, would you come speak to us about your experience of growing up as a gay person, young gay person in northern Michigan? And so I met this group of people speaking my language about the things I cared about. People in their 90s, so progressive. I did not know such things existed. And then I had all this church music training. And you know how volunteer things work.
So I said, sure, I'll play. Thinking I would never use that in a church setting again. So that's how I entered Unitarian Universalism. And because, I've named this before, because Ruth Gamble at that first Sunday said, we'll see you next Sunday, right? Truly, that made the difference. How can I lighten up? Oh, who's got an answer for that one? Someone wants to lighten up. Prayer, meditation, laugh, play with kids.
Down on your hands and knees and hang out with toddlers.
Get down on your hands and knees and play with toddlers. Lay in the hammock and look at the sky. And I think one of the deeper things underneath this kind of question is to understand that all your idiosyncrasies included, you are okay, just the way you are, even if you never change, right? That's the heaviness, I think, so often, is how we're feeling about ourselves and what we should or shouldn't be doing, or the way we wish we were different. And not that those go away, but to understand that even still, we are good enough as we are. That's what I would say. How do I let go of my anger? Who solved that one? Allow yourself to feel it in a safe way.
Plastic ice cube trays.
Plastic ice cube trays.
They're really good for throwing. You don't break anything.
For throwing and you don't break anything with them. Right? A physical, some of it's in our bodies, right? Especially if we're a person who's held it in. And sometimes to get to the useful place of the anger, we have to get the surface layer out if we stockpiled. Yeah. Punching pillows, those kinds of things. I like smashing things personally. Yelling in the car while you're driving.
Not at anybody, but just yelling.
Not at anybody, just yelling, screaming. Car is a kind of a safe place to do it without worrying that you're going to be heard, right? Dance it out. I heard something else. Work in the garden. Soil work. So, yeah.
Don't expect it to be a linear process.
Don't expect it to be a linear process. So here's the thing about anger. Anger comes from somewhere, right? The question becomes, what's the source? What's the source? I would say the primary question is, what's the deep need that is not being met? What's the deep need that's not being met? To which our response is, because we haven't kind of grabbed it otherwise, is perhaps anger. What is the meaning of grace? So as I would understand grace, grace is the goodness in our lives that weaves through it, that arrives unbidden, uninitiated, uncreated by us. For some people, that's divine grace, right? All the goodness that just infuses our life. I think of it in a little more naturalistic terms, all the ways that goodness can come, the ways that we are fortunate through no effort of our own, whether that comes from individuals or the circumstances of our lives. Will you be willing to help me die with ease? Certainly willing to try. Right? It's always about accompanying and what that requires, and trying to be open and sensitive to what that is. You know me, I'm a more receptive, quiet, listening kind of presence. That's my starting place. But I would offer my presence and whatever questions I thought might be helpful. Listening for what seems like it's simmering or stuck or in need of movement, if there was something. But yes, willing. I've been able to accompany a number of people through their deaths, including my mom, which was powerfully instructive. Right? I learned a lot accompanying my mom. Why are there separate boards for visitor and member name tags? Good question. There's not a true answer, right? But some of it's ease, right? And some of it's to help our greeters pay attention to newer folks, right? Here, guide you here, and it just helps give a different kind of attention. Remember, you're good. Go this way. Not totally, of course. I'll have to see if I can decipher that one yet. How does UUCM grow as a community? Grow in multiple ways comes immediately to mind, right? So I will say that physically, I think we are bound at the moment in a lot of ways, right? There's something powerful about the large gathering. And we can do multiple gatherings, but there's something about the large gathering, I think especially now, that has a certain power to it. And we are bound by our space and our parking. The deeper question, of course, is the growing otherwise. And I have a sermon stirring about this, but a colleague drawing on someone else's wisdom and looking at faith development, faith formation, lifelong growth and learning, uses the phrase that the congregation, the community, is the curriculum, right? This is the class. This is the learning. It's what we do with each other. We can give information, we can do all those kinds of things, but how we are with each other is actually what we're learning, is the curriculum. So I think for me, that's one of the places of growth for us, is to really understand and enter that. What is it that we're trying to be and do and wanting ourselves to be able to be and do? And therefore, how do we do it here? And at a certain level, you can't stop at the growth then, I think. There was a congregation, I don't know if this works anymore, but there was a congregation that had like 700 members. Sanctuary, I think about as big as this. They had 5 services. They had 5. So there are ways, right? With terrifying changes in my future, how do I find some peace and happiness now? I'm going to crowdsource again. What would you say? Meditate. Stillness, right? Simplify and focus. Ice cream. Right, soothing, self-care, right? Maybe change your perspective on how you see change. Change your own perspective in terms of the terrifying, right? In terms of what's terrifying. Spend time in nature.
My experience is that what's projected as terrifying isn't so much when I actually get there. So just maintain your well-being in the moment.
Maintain your well-being in the moment, because part of your learning is that when you get there, it's less terrifying than you had anticipated.
Share it with others.
Share it with others, not hold it alone. Yeah.
I like to journal it out, and then it usually all the terrifying things that when I look back and I have a journal full of fear that never happened, worry. Journaling is comforting.
Journaling, getting it out. Yeah, as someone said, I don't know what I think until I see what I say. So what I want you to know is this will be like 3 years worth of sermon topics. So your questions will not disappear, even though we may not get to them today. There's a question about the Middle East. In this particular case, it's framed, how can Jerusalem be shared? Sharing in the East possible. I have not spoken strongly and directly about Gaza and Israel, trying to tease out my own layers around that. I would share for a moment, I'm sorry, I'm not going to remember this person's name now, who made the helpful distinction between moral clarity and moral certainty. Said moral clarity is when you see a wrong and injustice. It's the thing that calls you to action, to march, to stop, and then there's moral complexity, which is to understand the humanness of everybody involved and the layers. And I think what Palestine and Israel has surfaced really intensely is really tangled up layers of both of those. The thing about the clarity is it has to do with the power piece. Who's got the power?
and who needs to be stopped, right? There's that. And how do you do that without reinforcing the demonizing of the people with the power? So I hope to come back to that in a more complete way, but I want to say that the detangling has been so especially difficult, but it's representative of justice, human rights efforts all over. This is just particularly tangled, but those are true all the time. Will I ever find love? I hope so. Depending on, I'm curious what that means for you. I've been told that violent revolution is the only true path to change, although it may be assisted by peaceful means. Is there any truth to this? I worry about the result of change via violence. I do too. I would say for myself, I think, I was just talking about this yesterday, the way we get to something truly new is never painless, never comfortable. It's messy, violent, not necessarily violent, I would say, but disruptive, right? Things have to come apart, otherwise they're just getting reshaped to be the same thing. So I do have that in mind for this time in the world, that some things are going to have to come apart. Our expectations, some of, a piece of that. And I think of that in the life of the congregation too. What has to come apart in order to take those pieces and rebuild the new? But I think the world is embodying it so powerfully at the moment. So when I start to get scared about the potential in the nation, for example, around the politics, I try to remember that there'll be value no matter what. I still want to minimize harm, but there'll be value no matter what. And if it has to come apart in some way to get to what's coming, perhaps that will. What started the universe? Oh, I love playing that in my mind sometimes because it's so impossible, right? It's a great humbling question for me. What surprised you when you became a parish minister? So my path to ministry was very gradual through the music lens. It just became more and more ministerial. So I didn't have quite a sudden thing, but let me think. I think I understood in a new way the way people bring their expectations of ministers to the relationship, right? Project their experience of ministers onto the minister, or lack of experience of ministers onto the minister. And not that I didn't know that cognitively, but experiencing it is really striking. Sometimes I have to remind myself, oh, they're bringing a story, they're bringing an experience to how they're perceiving me. It's not just me and that person. I represent the minister role as well. Let me do just a couple more. Such good questions. What are examples of when it may be good to judge another person and when not to? Any advice on negotiating this boundary? Yeah, I'm gonna crowdsource so that my brain thinks a little bit.
Look after your own heart first.
Look after your own heart first. Discernment, right? Engage in the discernment.
Try to understand, what is discernment?
Try to understand what is discernment. Ask yourself what you're going to do with that information, that judgment made, perhaps. Mm-hmm.
I say ask yourself, is it a critique or is it a judgment?
Ask yourself, is it a critique or a judgment?
What does your judgment tell you about yourself?
What does your judgment tell you about yourself? This is, I think, a great question for Unitarian Universalists who so want to include everybody. And yet, we need to have boundaries because not everything can be included safely, right? So we struggle with this one, I think. So judgment has to do with discerning, for me, discerning what's going on, but ideally not, the judgment piece that I would avoid is making that about the inherent goodness of that person. right? So they might be behaving very cruelly. And if I can to say, that doesn't mean they're an evil person. It means their life experience, the need they're pursuing, is so strong. They're getting it in a violent way, but to not make them inherently evil. Like, that's the distinction for me around judgment. I want to be able to discern, have a judgment about the behavior and whether that should be able to continue, or I want to try to impede it somehow, or something else, right? That's what I would say there. Oh, time goes so fast. I will come back to more of these questions. Let me end with this one. What do you believe comes after death? I do not know. Some people have life experience, right, that gives an indication. I would say I do not know, and I'm not worried about it, right? That if I continue, I'll be kind of surprising because I won't know what it's going to be ahead of time, and that will be wonderful. And if I don't, I won't know, and that's okay. Like, if I return to the earth, I'm okay with that too. So of course, I do not know, but there's nothing in my life that communicates exactly continuing, except for the times that someone who's died seems to have a presence in a given moment. There's one gentleman who died, and I was halfway across the country at a retreat, and I felt him sit on me. It's a very strange thing. Like, he sat on me, which is a very kind of quirky thing, kind of funny thing he would do. And I found out later that's when he had died. So I have those kinds of experiences. I go, okay, what do I do with that? I still don't have an answer, whether that's human energy that somehow register or connect, or I don't know what that says about the after. Thank you for the questions. Don't hesitate to write some more and bring them up or have them here, because truly, as I head into the summer, I'll be sitting with your questions as a resource for the coming year. And thanks for your help answering. I really appreciate that. So may we stay with the questions together. And I think the key piece here now is discerning the questions, the next questions for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, for entertaining our questions. Our offering each week is a way to express our commitment and appreciation for our church and our community, for our work together here and in the larger community. Each of our gifts contributes to a community blessing and is an expression of our gratitude. This month, we're sharing 25% of the offering with the CARE Crisis Nursery, which makes the world a safer place for children and families in our community by providing shelter, respite, and assistance to families facing crisis. If you'd like 100% of your offering to go to CARE Crisis Nursery, put it in the white envelope in the basket. Please see the slide for other ways to give. Text, UUCM website, email, mail, PayPal. Any way you can offer your help is appreciated and a recognition of who we are as a UU community. we dedicate these gifts to our UUCM community may thrive, and so children in our community may be free of any responsibility or possibility of abuse, neglect, and they too may thrive. Thank you for giving from your hearts.
I did a quick pass through the remaining questions. Such good questions. Thank you. Thank you, Carol, for being worship associate after your trip to the East. Thank you, and for reflecting on it so beautifully. Paul and Steve have been navigating extra gremlins this morning with the technology. Thank you very much. Yeah. Eileen, too, very patient on the Zoom end and hosting. Shanti, thanks for the beautiful green setting. Laura and Carl for being such kind greeters. To Shannon Dooley Miller and Lynn St. Jacques for working with refreshments today. Cheryl and Shannon Dooley Miller were with our youngest ones. Phil and Carl, thank you for reading. And thanks for your co-answering. I love crowdsourcing. That's getting to be more and more of my favorite thing, right? There's so much wisdom, experience, and insight in the room, and that is exactly what our tradition teaches, right? That we're all in this together, and that there's a place for lots of people to speak, whether it's from here or somewhere else. The choir is on break, but what fun singing last week. Thank you. So if you're inspired, get it on your mind and maybe sing along when it picks up in the fall. Here's your man, Toby. Toby, thanks for the music today. It's postcard writing party. This is around the voting every Monday with Gail Johnson-Vaughn, who can answer other questions around the postcarding, this tremendous postcarding effort to help people get out to vote. That's the effort. Paul is hosting a Beat Cafe, a new one on Tuesday at 6:30. Come join in. And a Jam Cafe for playing along on Thursday. Come and set up starting at 6 for the Jam Cafe. Arts and Crafts Fair on June 8th. Mark your calendar, a couple weeks from now. Community business meeting next Sunday. So after the service, we'll have some, a little bit heftier refreshments than normal, and then we'll have our annual meeting. Because of that, the UU 101, which is for new folks who want to just get a little taste of what is this UU thing about after the service? Usually it's the first Sunday, but we're going to move that to June 9th this month because of the annual meeting. And please keep checking out the website, sign up for the newsletters to find out more about what's going on. For our closing song, so one of the other questions was, is there a question that is unanswerable? Yes. See lots of nods. A whole lot of questions that are unanswerable. So this song, Wo Ya Ya, speaks to that. We're going. We don't know where we're going, but we're going to get there, wherever that is. And Kevin knows where we're going. And the Wo Ya Ya is a neutral kind of sound that expresses that unvoiced not knowing. So I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and just sing.
kind questions, meaningful questions, are actually opening words, right? Things that open us. May we remember for these closing words, those opening words. May we remember our freedom of pulpit and freedom of pew, and that it's what happens between the two and between all of us that matters. The journeying through the questions, that's where our tradition lives, in every room where it happens. May we remember that we are not alone in this journey as we extinguish our chalice, but carry this light. Together, let us carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Please join us for connection and refreshments if you're in the room, and we'll see you next Sunday for our music service.